In early July this year, when Thomas Schafer, the new CEO of the renowned German car company Volkswagen, delivered a presentation to his management team, he said, "The future of the VW brand is at stake," and these words are by no means an exaggeration. High costs, falling demand, growing competition, the list goes on. The roof is on fire, he warned, echoing one of the most noted alarm calls in recent business history from Stephen Elop, who in 2011 compared his company to a burning platform shortly after taking the helm at Nokia, then the world's largest maker of mobile phones. In the case of Nokia, the wake-up call did not help. A few years later, the firm was dismantled and its mobile phone business sold to Microsoft, which has since closed it down. Could mighty VW, its mightier parent group, which owns 9 other brands, or even Germany's mightiest industry as a whole, really suffer a similar fate? And if it did, what would that mean for Europe's biggest economy? Let's find out in today's program. According to The Economist, an imminent implosion of the car industry seems unlikely. In 2022, Volkswagen was the world's largest car maker by revenue, giving it plenty of cash to support its biggest brand. On July 27th, it reported that sales rose by a healthy 18% in the first half of 2023, year-on-year, to 156 billion euros. BMW and Mercedes-Benz, Germany's 2 other big automotive concerns, are in decent nick. Yet disaster is no longer inconceivable. German industrialists are feeling real angst about the future. In July, an index of business confidence from IFO Institute, a think tank, fell for the 3rd consecutive month. German bosses echo Mr. Schafer's list of concerns and add other graphs, from burnt-up bureaucracy to the delicate geopolitics of trade with China. Car makers are more exposed to these challenges than most industries, as they are having to negotiate several transformations at once. They must electrify their fleet, for instance, and learn to develop software. As these trends play out, more of the value added is likely to come from elsewhere. Industry insiders admit that factories will have to shrink or even close down, as will many suppliers, especially those which make parts for internal combustion engines and gearboxes. Germany's car industry must also tackle its growing China problem, having benefited from the Asian giant's rapid growth in recent decades. In the second half of 2022, Germany's 3 big car companies made around 40% of their revenue there. They are now suffering from a reversal of fortunes. Volkswagen has just cut its global delivery forecast owing chiefly to slowing Chinese sales. Geopolitics are liable to make things worse, and Chinese rivals have started expanding abroad, particularly in Europe. Last year, for the first time, China exported more cars than Germany, around 3 million and 2.6 million vehicles respectively. All these problems are coming together in Wolfsburg, home to Volkswagen's headquarters. According to press reports, orders for the group's EVs are between 30% and 70% below plans, depending on the marque. More than half of the EU's car-making gross value added is produced in Germany, miles ahead of France, which is second with 9%. Cars account for 16% of German exports of goods. And although the economic importance of Germany's car industry peaked at 4.7% of the country's gross value added in 2017, the share was still at 3.8% in 2020, the last year for which data are available, calculates Neil Jensen of the Kiel Institute, a think tank. According to other estimates, this is about a percentage point more than other car-making powerhouses such as Japan and South Korea. Moreover, zeroing in on narrow industry numbers misses the sector's true importance for Deutschland AG. It's an operating system of sorts, explains Oliver Falk, who runs the IFO Center for Industrial Organization and New Technologies. Important parts of the German economy and its institutions rely on it, he says. More recent numbers are hard to combine, but according to a study in 2020, global demand for German cars accounted for more than 16% of the value added of Germany's metal bashers and plastics makers. They also estimated that such global demand indirectly paid for another 1.6 million jobs, bringing the total number of people supported by the car industry to 2.5 million, more than 5% of the German workforce. German investment and innovation are tied to the country's car makers. The car industry accounted for 35% of gross fixed capital formation in manufacturing in 2020, according to IW. Car makers accounted for nearly half of corporate patent filings in 2017, up from a third in 2005. The car industry is also central to Germany's much-vaunted social model. One important element is regional equality. Car factories were often built in otherwise economically weak areas, of which Wolfsburg is the prime example. The sector shores up many of these regions. According to one recent study, 48 of Germany's 400 cities and counties are heavily dependent on jobs in the car industry. Wolfsburg leads the pack. 47% of the city's workers toil in the sector. Should car making fade, Germany would face many local crises, says Wolfgang Schroeder, one of the authors of the study and a fellow at the WZB, a research outfit. Without a strong automotive industry, Germany's smooth industrial relations would become much more challenging. The automotive sector also helps reinforce the management model within corporations. When labor representatives, or more specifically, workers, have access to critical resources from finances to information. If this arrangement were to fall apart, it would alter the balance of Germany's labor market, reckons Sebastian Julian, an economist at the Hans Bocker Stiftung, a trade union think tank. To exaggerate only a bit, it will make a big difference whether Volkswagen manages its transformation or whether it is replaced by Tesla, he says, referring to the American EV pioneer, which has just announced that it intends to expand its plant near Berlin to what will be Europe's biggest car factory. Over time, says Mr. Julian, manufacturing jobs in Germany would no longer be exceptionally well paid relative to service ones and manufacturing jobs in other European countries. Harder to measure but no less profound would be the psychological effects of a diminished German car industry. The reputation of German industry and its engineering prowess, already knocked by Volkswagen's Dieselgate emissions cheating scandal of 2015, would take another hit. In a paper published last year, Rudiger Bachmann of University of Notre Dame and others calculated that because the company was found fiddling with emissions readings, sales of other German brands in America fell by 166,000 cars, costing them $7.7 billion in foregone revenues, or nearly a quarter of their total in 2014. If Germany's car industry were to evaporate, in other words, this would leave a huge economic crater in the midst of Europe, says Mr. Schroeder of WZB. Germany's politicians are, of course, desperate not to let that happen. Mr. Bachmann thinks German politicians need to put a bit more faith in market forces to fill the economic space that might open up as German carmaking wanes. Germany's oversized car industry, once a strength, increasingly holds the country back, argues Christoph Bornschein of TLGG, a consultancy. Cars are the biggest manifestation of Germany's total focus on mechanical engineering, he says. As Volkswagen's ongoing problems with its software unit show, an economic system that is optimized to churn out expensive mechanical wonders that run like clockwork will struggle to reinvent itself in an increasingly digitized world.